I would like to talk to you about how do we save money on a low income budget. So when it comes to saving, the first thing we want to think about is obviously our mindset. It's extremely important that we have proper mindset and, more importantly, good habits when it comes to saving. Think of it this way. Whenever you earn money, the first thing you want to do is to pay yourself first. So ideally, you want to have 10% or even 20% of every paycheck should be going into your savings account. Once that's done, obviously we want to look at other savings vehicles as well, preferably retirement plans because you get a tax deduction for that. But let's go over some of the most important items that we need to think about when it comes to saving money on a low budget or a low income budget. So the first thing is obviously we want to create a budget. To start by creating a budget is to track your income and expenses, right? So what is a budget? Budget is a way of tracking your income and expenses. You want to list all your expenses, whether it's a mortgage or rent or utilities, all of your expenses. Don't forget to include your dining out, your ancillary expenses. In fact, I have a very good expense analysis worksheet that I can provide to you should you want to have one of my worksheets to utilize. So all you have to do is just send me a message or leave a comment down below, and I will send you the expense analysis your worksheet for your use. We've thought of every possible expense that you could think of for an individual or a family, and we have put it all in a nice spreadsheet for you. So going back to creating a budget, we're going to list all your monthly bills and we're going to allocate them with different categories, and we're going to go through them and review them, because what we want to do is we want to see if there's any possible way we can reduce those expenses, right? A lot of times we have memberships to different things, such as memberships to gyms, we have memberships to some associations, or we have subscription services. You want to go through, you want to review your expenses, and you want to cut them down as much as possible. So that would be a very, very good place to start when it comes to saving more money. The second thing I want you to think about to cut expenses, we're going to look at other ways to reduce your expenses. You can also look at cutting your utility bills. One of the ways to cut your utility bills is obviously to make sure you don't leaving the lights on when you're not using them. Turn off any possible electronic device, anything else that you have in your kitchen that you're not using. Turn them off. Be conscious of how are you using your utilities to reduce your bill when it comes to that. Also, oftentimes in the winter, people tend to have their heating temperature in the room to be high. Maybe you want to get used to, instead of putting your heating at 70 degrees or 71 or 72 degrees, maybe you want to lower it down to 68 degrees or 67 degrees. I know it's hard sometimes, but I do know that, with some practice, our bodies and body temperatures get used to it, or even just wearing another extra layer. It's going to help us to save money and reduce on expenses. We want to cutting back on our dining expenses, dining out, going to restaurants for drinks. You may not even realize it, but those things add up. Be very, very conscious of how you're spending your money. And if you cannot afford to go out, just plainly tell your friends that it is not within your budget and you cannot go out. You can also find cheaper alternatives. Rather than going to a nice fancy sushi restaurant, you can actually go buy sushi from a supermarket. There are other cheaper alternatives when it comes to dining out, and so you want to consider using them as well. Prioritizing your spending. So we want to prioritize our spending. How are we going to do that? Identify your needs versus your wants and prioritize your spending accordingly. Okay, so let's talk about needs versus wants. Very, very important when it comes to prioritizing your needs versus wants. Sometimes we forget, You know, when you see this nice shiny new beautiful purse or shoes or whatever else it is, some toy that you want to buy. When I say toy, I mean adult toys. You have to remember, you have to make sure in your mind you categorize, is this a want or is this a need? Do you really actually need this additional set of clothing or the additional set of equipment, or do you really need to change your phone, or could you be using the same one that you have? So being very diligent about your spending, very diligent about your new purchases. Maybe you ask yourself a question, and make a deal with yourself that you're not going to buy anything new for the next week or even for the next month, and just have a little game with yourself, you know, to promise yourself, I'm just not gonna buy anything new. And it also helps very much when you have a friend who is going to keep you accountable for it. So if you have a colleague or friend or even family member, maybe you can keep each other accountable for it as well.